I think I'm going to let you. Do you want to take the run on this one? Because I feel like as I'm editing these, I end up talking a lot.
Well, Death Stranding was not. I mean, the last game that we discussed
so bad.
wasn't even. I mean, I wasn't really like hardly part of it, just because it like. Yeah. Well, for one, I had COVID. Like,
oh jeez.
Three, two, one. Dark Lord.
Well, let's get into it. Welcome back to 321 Backlog, the podcast where we play and talk through games from our video game backlog. My name is Alec, and I'm joined, as always, by James. How you doing, dude? You doing all right?
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good tonight. I just got off work, but I'm very excited to be recording this episode tonight.
How is your sense of smell?
It's fine, actually. It's never been better. In fact, everything smells bad.
Oh.
I feel like everything that could possibly smell bad is super intense. It's like the opposite of what you would have been told. It's my superpower.
Was COVID smell or was it taste?
It was both, but I've had COVID more times than anyone, I think. And I've never had that symptom before, ever. Every time I've gotten it, it's just been like cough, stuffy nose. If anyone listened to the last episode or the stuffy nose episode,
oh man,
that's usually the biggest thing that I get, and the fevers.
Yeah, I have yet to officially be in that club.
I think, man, get join like one of those clubs where they send you coffee every month. Like that's what I would recommend.
Can we do like a disease of the month club? Just oh boy,
I don't want to. I'm not. I don't want that. You can do whatever you want.
I've heard this a bunch. Like somebody saying, like, "Oh, I've never gotten it," but or oh, we think we had it like the end of 2019 before we knew it was COVID. Like,
yeah,
you've heard people say that. I think I'm one of those. If I did get it, I'm either been extremely asymptomatic or I'm just got the perfect immune system.
Well,
so it's one of those.
If they say it started in 2020, then why is it COVID-19? I don't know. I mean, really though, like what, you get the first edition COVID, dude. Congratulations. It's gonna be worth money one day.
Man, I don't know. I'll tell you what. Welcome to 321 COVID.
Yeah, welcome to Healthcare Podcast. Yeah, dude. We don't need to talk about it. Let's go. Let's talk about Death Stranding.
Oh God, no. We're talking about something better than Death Stranding.
We're talking about. I have in my notes God of fucking War.
There it is,
featuring Kratos
and the boy.
And boy. I've been saying that for weeks, dude.
I mean, I've got from like the neck up. I've got the Kratos look. I got the nice beard, bald head, and I wanted to try to convince my son to like do Halloween as Atreus, and we could go like as a combo.
That would be good, man. He has the look too a little bit, actually.
He does.
He's got that stringy little bow boy look.
The bean pole, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
I think it would be good.
But
he wants to do something. Yeah, no.
I was going to ask if he had inherited your godlike powers.
That remains to be seen.
I don't know if this is going to work on my camera there. That was a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
My wife and I did. It's coming in
nice.
Really nicely saturated, but yeah, it was a cool little fun Halloween we did. We could have all went.
I think I'd have to bring the beard back down a little bit if I was going to do it.
I would have to probably grow mine out more if I ever decided to do it again.
I didn't bring a measuring tape because we could do like a couple segments, every couple of recordings to see what it's up to yet.
The beard measuring contest.
The beard measuring segment.
I'm gonna lose every time on the beard measuring. God of fucking War. Have you ever played a God of War game before?
I have not. As the folks at home have heard me say over and over again, I was always an Xbox kid.
Yeah.
So most of the PlayStation exclusives have been fully off my radar, and by the time they come over to Steam or PC or something like that, I've kind of just wrote it off, or I'm doing something else. So I never played any of the old ones.
Right.
Had you?
No. I bought because I love creating a good backlog. On PlayStation 3, I bought the series. I think it was God of War 1 and 2 remastered for PS3. I bought those and never played it. Owned a PS2, and I loved these kind of games back then, but I don't know, man. It was like, I felt like PS2 was around the time period where everything was a little like out of my price range kind of thing. It was like, I would get one game a year, and I feel like it was usually like a big RPG or something, just something that would take up a lot of time. God of War is kind of a shorter game, and I'd never got one. So
yeah, because the older ones are like more hack and slashy, right?
Yeah, definitely. They're much more, I guess, more action, but there's still a lot of story. I think Sony does a good job telling a story. If we can say anything about Sony and the games that we've played that are big Sony games, they're like a hell of a story in all of them that I've played.
Yeah, I agree with that. My wife and I, her as well, Xbox kid or Nintendo, or she did a lot of the earlier Zelda games and stuff like that. But we were both interested in the 2018 God of War, but didn't know anything about the story. So the two of us watched, I think, like a 30 or 45-minute video kind of explaining everything prior to the game.
It's pretty fucking
and it did a really good job. Yeah,
it's very convoluted. I did watch that, and then my wife asked me about it later on, and I had forgotten half of the video because that's usually how it works unless I'm actually taking notes. And I read this Reddit post to her because I Googled, she asked, I think, what his tattoo was. And so I just quickly Googled it, and I found some, not Reddit, like Quora or one of those weird, ask a question, get an answer websites. And somebody gave this just crazy long explanation about everything God of War, and it was really concise and to the point and really well written. And I was like reading it off to her like I was hearing it for the first time, just like, oh my God, this happened. Well, and then this happened.
I think that was probably my favorite little bit of the video we watched because it covered the tattoo.
Yeah.
That it was, where it came from. His brother, it was like
right.
I think it was a birthmark that he ended up getting tattooed in remembrance. And
his cool birthmark.
So cool.
It's cooler than like a giant mole on your eyelid.
Do you have a mole on your eyelid?
No, but I just mean, like, I was trying to, some people got it worse than others. Kratos' brother looked pretty cool.
Yeah, very true.
I guess. I don't know. He might have been very obese. I don't think we've ever seen him. We just know what his tattoos were like.
I also liked the explanation in that video of his pale white skin.
That was the part
ashes of his enemy or something. That was amazing.
It wasn't the ashes of his enemy. It was
ashes of something.
Of his, he unknowingly killed his wife and his daughter.
That's what it was,
and that's what he was. Yeah, he was like meant to live with the shame of doing that. Pretty raw deal, if you ask me. That kind of sucks.
Pretty gnarly. Yeah.
But I mean, divorce isn't always an option.
Oh no!
This was on my backlog. Did you have interest in playing it prior?
I did.
Okay,
but again, didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
Should we tell the story of how I came to play this one?
Yeah, I think it's I do.
I think this is pretty interesting. So I'm going to come at it from my perspective, and then you can fill in any gaps.
Sure.
So we're recording this. Let's see what is today? At the end of July 2023.
Yeah.
We had just met for at my brother's house for 4th of July back in our hometown. You're really close. You came by, had good times. And then we left, went about our separate ways. And then I think on the way to the hotel, you sent me a text message like, hey, I found this PS4 in a trash can.
Which sounds like complete bullshit, but it wasn't.
Which is like, all right, let's
like, that's like something you tell your wife, like, oh yeah, I found a PS4 in the trash can. It's brand new.
Unreal. And it was like, hey, I'll take it. We'll see if it works and go from there. And it works very well.
You have to add in, you did that badass I'm cussing a lot because I'm off work. Sorry.
It's past the minute mark. It's fine.
Yeah, you did the most badass thing. You were just like, we were talking about shipping it or whatever. And then you just had someone drop off like a shipping label and, packing materials and everything. It just showed up at my house. And I was like, okay, I'll send it
Walmart
out
Plus Walmart Plus is an amazing tool.
Yeah.
You can just put whatever address you want, and it'll send it to the local Walmart, and they'll grab like an Uber driver to drop it off at your house. So I just did that for no extra fees, no delivery fee.
Yeah.
And they dropped everything off. I was like, I'll give you a box, some packing material, some tape, and then I'll email you the label. As long as you could print it off, we're good to go.
And we did it.
And
I also sent you. I sent you a
crazy.
couple other games too, right? I sent you.
Yes, The Last of Us. You sent me
Horizon
Zero Dawn. Yeah.
And those are. I'm aware of The Last of Us, but the Horizon
That's
Zero
on my
Dawn
backlog.
is on my backlog, and I've heard it's pretty
nice.
good. So
awesome. So yeah, we're definitely going to play The Last of Us.
And you played it on. Did you play it only on the PS4?
Yes. So let's see here. At the same time as this, I will say to finish off the condition of the condition of the PlayStation 4 from the trash can with a controller.
Yeah.
Right. That was also in there. The only issue with the controller was it had a little bit of stick drift. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll go. I got two third-party PlayStation controllers for, I think, the price of one. And then my wife and I have been playing off and on. She even went and got a game as well. The Ghost of
Tsushima,
Tsushima, yeah.
Tsushima, yeah.
So we've been playing through that. Ghost of Tsushima.
And she's been playing through that. Is it hard as fuck? Like I've heard
heard
it's brutal.
Difficult. It's quite difficult. I'm going to continue to play
podcast.
It. Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, you're playing it too?
Yeah, she tried playing. Cool. Yeah. It was real hard. I was like, let me try and play.
And you're a game
and it is also quite hard for me. I'm not saying I'm better at games than she is. I think I had a little bit more patience for some of the parts, but man, it's not an easy game. Anywho, back to God of War.
I do want to just talk. So this game, it did originally come out on PlayStation 4. It was Santa Monica Studios, published by Sony, and it came out in 2018, and then it was released on Windows in January of 2022. I picked it up shortly after that on Steam, so I did play the Steam version of it, and it's won a ton of awards. I mean, it's like 10 out of 10 on IGN. Steam's a 10 out of 10. I didn't even know they had a numeric rating system. Metacritic 93 out of 100 because they can't give it 100. And it got Game of the Year in 2018 and a bunch of other stuff. I think some of it was directly related to the acting in it and the characters and stuff like that. So it's a pretty well-liked, well-received game, but then I also did see in some reviews like a fair amount of hate about the gameplay, which I thought was pretty good, but we'll get into that. But
not knowing much about the gameplay other than quote-unquote hack and slash from the earlier games, I had some issues with some pieces of it, but overall I think it was fine. It was in line with what I expected.
Did you, on the PS4, how did the graphics look?
Amazing.
It was good, and you were playing it was not amazing. We weren't blessed with a free PS4 Pro, so that was 1080p we're playing at.
It was 1080p, but I mean, it's still amazing what it can do.
I played it at 720p on my TV, dude, with the Steam Deck, and to me it looked great. As long as there was a time where I paused it and I walked up closer to the TV, and I was like, "Oh, the boy's kind of blurry."
Yeah,
but really, generally, I mean, it's insane how good it looked. I had the settings dialed in too, where it would run at 30 frames a second, and there's some other program you can install on the Steam Deck that opens more memory up and all this stuff to make games run a little bit better. I had all that set up, but I mean, dude, the game looked great. It really did. Even at 720p, I feel like 720p 1080p is good enough. 4K gaming, just I don't know, man. I'll get there one day, but
I think it gets to a point
holiday
where
season 2023,
especially when you're talking about frame rates and your dots per inch and all that, it gets to a certain point where we can't really perceive much better. There is a distinction when you go from 1080p to 4K, but if you're going anything past that, I mean, it's really hard. I can't tell, once you're going past 4K, because I've seen huge TVs that are running 8K and all this stuff. It's just it's crazy. But I don't think we're really getting anything.
Yeah, in games specifically, I've noticed that if a game is natively 1080p, I'm sorry, if a game is natively 4K or a really high resolution game, if you dial it back to 720 or 1080p, it still looks really good. But if you take, but I think a lot of that just has to do with like smooth polygons and all that kind of stuff. That just has to do with graphics getting better over time. You could have it in 1080p and it still looks really good. That's because the models are good or their motion capture. Like we're looking at a human being on the screen that's skinned over to look like it's in a video game.
Right.
So
right.
The graphics were really good for me. It's one of the better looking games I think I've really had the experience to play recently. Death Stranding was great looking too, obviously, but this game just looked fantastic to me.
Yeah, it really did. It had a lot of. There were a lot of times. Oh, what am I trying to say?
It was the best of times. There was the worst of times.
No, talking about the Death Stranding. Yes, it was good. There were areas of the game where if it was an area that you wouldn't typically travel or something, they kind of the textures they put were not as polished. But in God of War, any area that you could see that if you could put your camera facing towards it, it was very well detailed and very well done. So like there were no like, oh, they're never going to traverse over here, so we're going to lower the polygon count or something over here. It's 100% is full blown great.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
Since we're kind of talking about graphics and all that, I have a pretty nice TV. When there's like rumors that the PlayStation 5 is going to be reduced in price, or they're going to have a slim model that'll have a lower price tag this holiday season. It usually happens. There's usually a slim model that comes out a couple years into the lifespan. PlayStation does it.
That is true.
You got the slim model that I sent you, a slim model of a PS4. I have a fat boy right over here.
Right.
A fat boy PS4. So if they do that, I think I'm going to buy a PlayStation 5 and I want to play God of War Ragnarok because I want to see like how good it can really look. 4K. I haven't ever played a game in 4K. I have a 4K TV, and I've recently watched like the YouTube OLED videos that are meant like that you see at the store, and it's crazy looking. So that looks nice.
Yeah,
I think the quality of screens is a lot better.
Yeah, I think I might have to do that as well because I also have a 4K TV, but we're not running anything that would do it. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the streaming services, because it's a smart TV, so I don't think Netflix is streaming 4K.
Yeah, I think a lot of them call for you actually hooking it up to Ethernet, but who's going to do that?
Yeah.
Whose TV is hooked up to Ethernet? Yeah, exactly.
Mine.
Yours. Only one person. Okay. All right. Whatever. Probably more people than I realize.
Only because my brother-in-law happened to be in the field of like networking, and like his daily job is running cables for like businesses. So he's got all the equipment and tools to run cables through walls and everything.
Where was he on 4th of July?
Georgia. So new rental, and I was like, oh hey Steve, can you come over and get in my attic to run all these cables? So my whole house has network drops. It's great.
Honestly, dude,
it's amazing.
I would love to have that because I would
so
really
nice.
like to have like Wi-Fi to my TV and really I guess that's it.
It's nice. Great because the only thing that Wi-Fi is going to are like tablets, phones, handheld stuff, but all the big things, all the computers, all the TVs, all the consoles are hardlined.
Yeah.
And it's like it
used to be like that. Like when I had an apartment and everything was real close together, it was like that. And then I also I rented a house before before we bought this one. And when I rented that house, I ran cable on the outside of the house because it was a rental. And I remember just using like a concrete drill bit to go through the block wall. I repaired it very well. Like, honestly, I really did. But we just ran the cable outside and I ran Ethernet and DisplayPort to my TV. It was awesome. Nice. It was also horrible. I think we're talking about a video game here, though. We're not talking about ruining rentals.
Are you sure about that? Oh, we're not giving tips on how to lose your deposit.
I got my full deposit back. I'm telling you, the house was in better shape when I left it, and I'm not even joking. But I was there for a long time. Anyway, I made this really nice paper towel holder underneath of the. I think that's really what hooked him in. Made a paper towel holder, kept it underneath the cabinets.
Well, using our rental properties as a segue, why don't we talk about Kratos's? No, I was going to say Kratos's new digs. Or do you wanted to go with the sound quality first?
I mean, the sound quality was good, right?
That was great.
Okay, cool.
That was great.
The sound quality, I guess you can kind of lump voice acting in with that a little bit too, maybe.
Yeah, I mean the sound was good. The voice acting was really good. Yeah. The sound quality. Why I gave it a slightly higher score. I mean, I don't know why you gave it a 9, but
it's a weird thing. I'll tell. I have a reason. So, I don't fuck around with these 9s.
I keep talking about in these podcasts like atmosphere and all that, and I think proper sound can enhance that. So there's a lot of different worlds that we visit in this game and a lot of different ecosystems that we visit. So, you'll go into a very foresty area, very wooded area, and you can hear the crickets and birds chirping and stuff like that. So there's a lot of background noise, but it amplifies the experience you're playing. That's what gets it to that 10 for me. And it's all done very well. The voice acting was done very well. All the music and animation, not animations, but all the mechanical sounds, like the weapons and stuff like that. They're all great. Yeah. So I really liked it.
Yeah. So okay, I give the voice acting a 10 out of 10. I think everybody in it played a great character, but the 9 was just, this is a weird thing. I had it docked for the majority of my playtime on the Steam Deck, and just randomly it would cut out the sound. And I think it might be an issue, limitation, or something with the dock, but I docked a point for that. It was just, it wasn't game breaking. Like, it wasn't enough at all for me to really care, but it did happen. And that's, I don't know. I don't think it happens in any other games. So I don't know really if it's something to specifically with God of War, or maybe the high amount of.
It's a chunky game, dude.
Yeah.
It's a big game.
So was the other game, which we shall not name, Death Stranding. And that didn't have audio issues. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
So do you want to kind of, I guess we can kind of get into it. I have quite a few notes here. We can kind of go over them if you want to, and you can kind of add in. How do you want to do this?
Yeah, your notes are a bit more extensive than mine. I think I was enjoying the playthrough more than the note taking on this go through.
So we communicated a little bit through our playtime, for anyone listening. I played in a lot of smaller segments, whereas Alec kind of played it in larger sit-down segments, I think.
Right.
So I think my notes, like, I would play for a little while, and then I would log off or whatever, and then I would kind of reflect on it and then put a note in. There were some segments where I had a longer period of play, and I had a hard time coming up with notes because there was just so much stuff happening.
Yeah, I think my average playtime, like sit down time, was maybe 5 hours. So that was like an average. So I had some that were a little lower, but some that went to like 8.
Yeah, there were days where I would sit down to play it, and then like my wife would be like, "Hey, I'm coming home from work. What's for dinner?" And I would just like get to the Sony screen. So
yeah.
Okay, well, it kind of starts out. You said you were talking about the new digs, Kratos' place. Definitely seems like he's got a lot going on.
Got a new kid.
He's got a kid, yeah. I knew that very much going into the game, because all of the advertising, the cover of the game, he's got a kid. He's older now, and he seems to be very angry, kind of rude.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out, because you come into this with how I took it was, I took it because of the video that I watched for like the background stuff kind of led me to this, is you're coming into this game with everything in Kratos' past as either not being 100% known or more of like rumors or legend. Like, his son doesn't know what he is right at the start of this game. So,
which is kind of cool too, because it also doesn't expect the player to know either, because they definitely revitalized the series a lot with this, or revamped. I don't know. It's kind of like what do they call that when they do that?
Like a reboot?
Yep. Thank you. I had every other word that started with re.
Reboot?
Yeah. So yeah, they kind of rebooted the series a little bit, and it was kind of cool as a player, because a lot of people coming into it now don't know the background story. It's extensive.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and they lead into it without you needing to know that, and then they do I thought a pretty good job kind of feeding you that information without it being every detail.
Yeah, they're definitely playing it as if it is kind of how I was kind of going at it, was because Atreus' son seemed to like have an inkling of stuff, or like know that he's not giving him all the information. I kind of took it as like the mother was maybe like would tell him bedtime stories or something. So it was like,
oh yeah, maybe
like stuff of legend or things that were like maybe exaggerated, but you're not really sure. So that's kind of how I kind of like had it in my head.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't seem like shocked that the guy cut down a tree and then carried it on a whole tree on his shoulder. He didn't seem very shocked about that. So he'd obviously seen some pretty substantial feats of strength and whatnot from his dad.
But what would he compare it to?
Oh yeah, because they kind of grew up in solitude.
Yeah, it'd be himself.
Himself,
right? So,
yeah, and I don't know.
And
he's kind of a scrawny
think
kid.
about in your childhood, you look up to your parents, and it's just like you're in awe of the things they can do, right? You think about the first time you tried to like arm wrestle your dad or something, right?
Beat him. I was 3 years old and I whooped him. I haven't lost since. Come at me.
I remember that, and it's just this, this immovable arm, and it's like, how could you possibly be as strong as you are, right? So from the eyes of a kid, from Atreus is like, because he is, the at such a level in my eyes, yes, of course he could chop down a tree, right?
I guess
why wouldn't he be able to?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good. I didn't think of that, but I don't think of stuff like that, I guess. Like I said, I was stronger than anybody I've ever met. So
look out.
Speaking of beating people up, the stranger fight, man, that's kind of the first real introduction to the kind of how cinematic and crazy this game was, man. To me, that was where I think I automatically was like, yeah, this is going to be a 10 out of 10. Just from that alone, I had so much confidence with this game.
I have done that fight 1, 2, 4 times.
Wow.
So I tried playing it before we did the podcast. I tried playing it on my PC, and my PC couldn't run it. I then played it on the PS4, and then spoilers, because we're going to talk about this later, I got a Steam Deck and tried playing it on there. So I've played through this Stranger Fight 4 times.
Yeah,
and it was amazing every time.
That's good. I'm glad that it just, dude. I feel like if you gave someone the controller and just let them play that portion of the game, that would sell a console for so many people. Mm-hmm. If you said like, this is what video games are, even if you're not a gamer, I think like that you'd be like, oh yeah, this is a little bit better than a movie.
I really liked how you kind of come into it, you're getting pounded into the ground by this stranger, and the mechanics of the fight weren't super complicated,
right?
But they were just challenging enough to like kind of poise you to work on later mechanics, parrying, blocking, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a fighting tutorial almost.
Without it being a direct tutorial, without it being somebody showing you how to use an axe. Yeah. Yeah, dude. And I hate that in games. I'll say that's you were in what you like Assassin's Creed, and I hate tutorials. So those are our facts those are our pillars of strength. I agree. It was good to teach you that. And then also it really showed you like you didn't feel weak in it, but you also didn't feel like a god of war. And I think that was cool as a starting point for a character that is crazy. Just crazy, crazy strong, crazy, maybe even a little bit immortal, maybe kind of a god of war. But it was like a good, you felt, I don't know, man, you just really felt like the hits, you felt everything that was happening felt so like you were in control of it. This is something else that Sony does really well. They incorporate the technology in their controllers. Yeah. So I think that heavy hit that you're feeling, you're literally feeling it in your hand. Yeah, with how that vibration goes through. Yeah, the vibration feedback. I don't know. I know there's haptic triggers on the newer DualSense controllers. So the controllers become harder to pull the trigger if the game wants them to be. Ooh, interesting. But Xbox controllers actually have vibration motors in the triggers, which is I did not know that until I figured it out for some reason. I can't remember specifically why. Oh, because it doesn't matter. But yeah, there's actually a racing game, maybe. That is, I mean, I think it is for that, but the reason I figured out why, I'm not even going to get into it.
All right.
But yeah, there's a lot. I think you really do feel a lot when you're playing these games, and it is thanks to the vibration, but also just the way that it all, the way the game plays out. You have the intensity of the moment, the quick time things where it tells you to push circle and all that stuff. That's a big staple of the God of War series going all the way back, but they toned it down and made it a lot more meaningful. I'm not sure, but I've heard, I think that they invented the quick time thing where you have to like spam circle, spam triangle,
right?
Hit these buttons in the order. I think that they maybe invented that, or really made it a huge part of the series. But I read that they wanted to dial it way back. The reboot.
Right. Yeah, because that did show up in a couple places, but it wasn't. I never got the feeling of like, oh, hey, we're doing this again, or it didn't get overplayed.
I was pretty excited about the God of War game, so I went and played a little bit of the PS2 one, the original, and there's a lot more of that. Like there's fights where if you don't hit the button sequence when it pops up on the screen and you mess it up, the fight restarts.
Oh, wow.
So I'm glad that they got rid of that, because if you mess it, like it's basically Simon Says, it feels cheesy after a while.
Yeah.
So it has no place in 2022.
Talking about getting that Ghost of Tashimi, whatever, however you say that one's got a bunch of those quick times.
Yeah.
That's and a lot of those, it's got a bunch. But anyway.
Yeah. So I know Kratos is old. That was like a big thing with the game. He looks aged. He can age. My first impressions of him, I just thought he was super rude, man. Like, I don't have a kid, but I wouldn't talk to my kid like that, I don't think. Do you talk to your kid like that? Boy.
All the time.
Now is not the time for talking.
I was trying to figure out, and there's tons of like speculation videos and all that, and I have not looked at any info on Ragnarok, so I don't know if it gets explained. I don't want to either. So I was real confused. There was part of it where it felt like he hasn't been around Atreus at all, and he maybe came back because the mother had died. Through the story, I think they had been living together the whole time, and maybe he's in such a funk because his wife had just passed away for number 3, I think, or 2.
I can't remember.
I feel he's lost his family 2. Multiple times.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if it was he's just very upset because other versions of cinema have done this where it's like a parent dies and then the remaining one will start to resent the child or children because it's like a reminder of the person they lost.
Right.
So I think it could be something like that.
Maybe.
Thinking about the story. So he's like, he's not my son. He's just the boy that I now have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I think what's her name? Faye is no longer there.
I really don't get the impression that he was ever like a happy father or person.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that, I remember thinking like kind of mean. I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. They very, I mean, let's not mince words. It was very, verbally abusive. It was he never says his name. He's always
boy.
Anything the boy does is done wrong, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Not a
he's
great.
He's a real hard.
He's a real jerk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Yeah, he was very, very rude. Very rude.
Yeah. So the game opens up more, and then you go. I thought the Turtle Fortress thing was pretty cool. Freya's house, how it was a giant walking turtle. That was cool. It was very naturey.
That was really cool.
I don't know how practical it was, but
yeah,
it was. Yeah, I thought that was neat. I don't know. It was very original, I guess.
I wanted to do some research on some like Norse mythology and kind of see what they were pulling from.
If she actually was a turtle walker,
yeah, or if Freya was, was she the goddess of what? Right? Was it nature, or just kind of find out what they were pulling from?
Goddess of love,
possibly,
and something. Yeah, I think I did.
I'm not sure.
Freya, goddess, love, beauty, fertility, sex, war, gold, and another thing that doesn't. I don't even know what it It's not in my language. It's in Norse. A type of magic practiced by Norse society. That doesn't sound real to me. Yeah. But yeah, that was cool. And then you kind of get into the serpent area. So when you first hit that area, did you explore? What did you kind of do when you
I tried exploring a little bit. I wasn't as pressed for time as some of our other games that we're covering on the podcast. So I was trying to explore when I could. And when I first got in, when it opened up into that little world tree area, I tried going and exploring a bit. I didn't do a ton of exploring. I found a rift or something, and I put my hand in and then got obliterated by some enemy.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, I think, my indication to move on with the story. I did some of the side quests when I first got there. There was like the random ghost that you would talk to and they would ask you to find a couple things. And then, but then I think when I got sundered by a rift, that was when I knew. I was just like, okay, maybe this is something I need to come back to later on. And maybe I'll get more talents or, upgrades or something like that. And then, So
and I level progression didn't seem like it was super fast either.
No, I think the weapons had 5 levels apiece, and then by the end of the game, you haven't even unlocked all of the levels for.
It was really spread out. I've been on a lot of games where it's like, you're getting a level like every couple minutes, and you end up with these hell. On Death Stranding, going back for a little bit, my porter level was like 300 or something. It was crazy, right? So I liked how they did this one, where it was meaningful
I noticed a lot of
upgraded something.
It felt like there was 2 ways that they gated the leveling up in this game. One, it was through experience, which you didn't gain nearly as much unless you defeated like a storyline segment with a boss or something.
Right.
Then you would get this giant chunk of experience and get to upgrade a bunch of things. And then there were also materials, and some of them were so rare that you would only get them from major story events. So you couldn't upgrade the weapon until you got that, and then you couldn't level up the skills until you got to a certain point too. There was the potential for some grinding, but it was minuscule experience for just if you try to grind it, which I think is good, because then the game has the feeling of a natural progression, but it's also gated in a way that you're not going to ruin the game for yourself. There's always going to, unless you're a true God of War IRL, there's always going to be a little bit of challenge there for you.
Yeah. I mean, when I finally got credits rolling and then we got back to the World Tree area, at the very end of the game, I got a insane amount of XP from that. And I think I sat there for like a couple minutes upgrading everything, because I basically kind of just gave you enough to just say, here you go.
Right.
Go, here's the rest of the game. And you could
Level
go and
up,
do.
son.
Yeah, pretty much. So it was nice because it made the choices in how you level up and what talents you choose and who you upgrade first. Do you start with Atreus or do you start with Kratos? Do you want his axe or his blades, whatever? It was very meaningful on which you chose. So I really like that.
I want to ask, so I'm kind of going off of like a little bit of story progression as well. But did you level up the kid first, or did you level up Kratos more, do you think? Like initially, I guess I found myself putting points into the boy more than... Yeah,
I think...
It was like, I felt like you got more for leveling him up.
Yeah, I think I started with Kratos.
Naturally.
And then I started using Square more to do the arrows.
Yeah.
And then I think I read some of the talents that he gets later on. I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. And it would be really helpful because I think he starts stunning people and he calls on allies of his own, like a wolf spirit or something. So
what animal
Artreus's build?
We're talking about it. Did you? I mean, there were different animals he could acquire.
I think it was wolf.
I did the wolves. I tried the ravens for a while and the boar as well, but I ended up ultimately going back to the wolves because they seemed to be the most effective.
Yeah. So I found a lot of value in having him upgraded. He was extremely helpful.
Dude, I almost feel like he was too good. You know what I felt like there were some fights where the travelers with the shield on their back and you can't attack them unless you're directly facing them. So there was some fights where you couldn't really do anything unless you got in the right position. But the kid could just sit there and hit arrow after arrow if you wanted to be that cheap about it.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, hey, if it's there, use it, right? You know, I use that a ton.
I know, dude. I did
to
too,
break
but I
enemies
also
out of their blocking.
Yeah, which arrows did you use more for the kid, the boy?
Outside of the puzzles, it was whatever it had defaulted on. I don't think I
the
sat
blue
through
ones had
and,
more of a
and changed them
stun,
up.
and the other ones bounced between enemies. So if you had a lot, there was a benefit to switching.
I got you. I don't think I switched it intentionally unless I was doing
a puzzle.
Yeah.
So there are some enemies that are much more affected by stun attacks.
Well, I've got to say the puzzles in this game, were great.
They were like a sweet spot. They weren't annoying.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, I liked that too. They were like a nice little bit of a break, but it wasn't. I used to play like a lot of Legacy of Kain games when I was a kid, also PlayStation 2. And some of the puzzles in them would take like an hour, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not, but they would just take they were a huge part of the game. And it would just, for me, like I want the combat, but puzzles can be in there because it breaks it up so you're not just nonstop. But yeah, I agree.
They weren't overly complicated. It was a sweet spot of kind of having to think outside the box a little bit, but then it came down into using sometimes your combat mechanics
right
to
throwing
achieve
the freeze and
throwing
stuff.
the axe, like all that.
You had
I really liked it.
Yeah,
there was one. I don't know if there's certain chests where they had like 3 runes on the front, and you had to go like interact with certain things.
Yeah.
There was one, it was pretty early in the game. I think it was right after you left the witch's hut for the first time and you got above ground rather. There was these pillars that I think you had to break. And if you took too long, they like reformed or something. But one was really far away.
Yeah.
I can't describe it any more than that because I can't remember where it was in the game. But essentially, I ended up having to arc the axe really high in the air to let it go and drop down.
Yeah.
So I threw it and just started moving away quickly. It happened to hit. I tried it a couple times. It hit, and I was able to do it. But my wife and I sat there and tried doing it with like throwing the axe, sprinting a bit, then throwing again. It was so hard.
I wonder if there was an easier way to beat that, and maybe you didn't realize it. Maybe.
Yeah, we did. She looked up a YouTube video, and I think the guy that beat it on there, he did a combination of sprinting.
Yeah.
And doing it, but I'm not great when it comes to aiming with controllers quickly. Fair. I can do broad strokes and stuff, but there was some of those quick aims. You have a very small window of leeway.
Yeah.
That if you mess up, you just miss, and I would miss so often. So having that arc to give me a couple extra seconds was perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway,
on the subject of puzzles, I did notice that. In from my experience, when you're doing these puzzles, say there's 3 objectives to unlock a chest. I thought this was really cool. There was always like one that was very obvious to get you interested in it. The first one's free, drug dealer kind of thing. And then the second one is kind of off. Like you see it in a natural way, but it's not obvious at all. There's like a little bit of, and then the third one, you actually kind of have to dig in and search for it.
Yep.
And it's like, thank God, because I'm now engaged with these puzzles a little bit, and I want to find it because I'm already 2/3 of the way there. I have to find the third one.
Right.
And that's great, man, because that's the way I don't really play games to 100% them, but shit like that makes me want to get the extra experience or the extra puzzle done to see what's in that box.
I can definitely see myself going back to this game. You finish the game and there's 2 other realms you have not visited at all.
I know, dude. I know.
Which is crazy.
I wish that I was a kid when I played this game, because that's when
it's not locked behind a DLC.
Right.
Thank you,
what,
Sony.
Though? One thing, I think the New Game Plus on this came out as a free like a patch to the game later on to give people a little bit more, which is awesome too, because then you do these extra realms, you 100% the game, and then they turn it up a little bit and you can play it, hard mode with all your stuff that you've earned.
The 2 that were left, I can't remember the names, but I think the dwarf twins, I think they were wanting me to go into them for a side quest, and I kind of ignored it. But it was amazing. It's just that the concept of like, we're getting a game, we've paid for it, and wink wink, and but it gave us more than what we needed to play the game for free, essentially, right? So
right.
I love that. I love that. You don't always have to have a DLC.
Well, God, man, that's a whole other. We could make an entire podcast about how we feel about DLC in general.
Game Shark, hidden Easter eggs, like meaningful Easter eggs.
Right.
Just anyway.
Another thing I think the game did really well. So again, this is piggybacking off of the puzzles thing. There was one part where I opened a chest and it gave me a new runic ability, I think, for one of the weapons. And you get it, and I open the menu and I'm looking at it like to see what it does. And I was like, oh, okay, that I don't know, that might be useful. Let me equip it right now and I'll see, on the next fight whether it's going to be good. So I equip it, I close out of the menu, and then 2 monsters spawn that are pretty weak. Like, I know I'm not going to lose the fight to them, but it's like, that they put that in there to give you a free way to test out that new runic ability you just got.
Oh,
and it's like, now I can see it in action and I can see if it's really the right one for me. And that's pretty awesome because it encourages you.
That's fantastic.
I know, dude, it's like just little stuff
because
like
I didn't see that, but that's amazing.
And it's not like you get this ability and somebody comes like, you got fucking, hey, listen, like in your ear telling you like, you can try this out, or go to your home base and practice on a target dummy. Like they just do it right there. And it's low stakes. You're not going to die.
It's like a better equivalent to, you remember in other games do this, but in Heroes of the Storm, when you would like look at how abilities work and they would have a little animation of somebody else playing the game and using that ability.
There was a little bit of that in this game too.
Yeah, there was in some of those menus, but it's like, here's a real world, like you can be the person doing it.
Do it. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a cool idea.
Man, I loved it. I just, I was when I try to look at these games, I always kind of try to look at like what they're doing that sets it apart from another company or another game. And that was one of them. Another thing, just with the secondary, I think Sony likes secondary characters because I think Horizon Zero Dawn maybe has like a boy or a girl in it. I don't even know. But the boy's exposition, they found a way to naturally tell you at what point in the game you were. You would finish something and the kid would be like, like we can explore now if you want. Or he didn't say it in such an obvious way, but he would be like, hey, I think we could maybe look around a little bit. We're not really in a rush. Nothing's happening. And it sounded like something a kid would actually say. I know the big news drops and Atreus finds out he is in fact a god as well.
Right.
And he says, and this is the perfect, like, this is a very realistic response to that. He's like, we could go up the mountain and keep doing what we're doing. And he's like, or we could really do anything you want. We're gods. Like no one can tell us what to do. And it's another way to tell you you're at a point in the story where it's okay to explore a little bit. You're back on the giant serpent area, Midgard. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The Lake of Nines, I think.
Yeah, that's in Midgard.
You get to that area and they're telling you like it's a good idea. You can explore if you want, but there's nobody telling you do some side quests, explore a little bit.
Yeah. I
don't know. Just the game did a really good job giving you information. This is huge for me with the game, giving you the info without shoving it in your ear.
Yeah, he would also, if he had just finished, this is how I experienced it, but if he would just finishing like, oh, hey, I think it's this way, and it's Atreus kind of directing in that in that direction. But I decided to go, and I think I saw a different path, so I went down there, and he's like, "Well, I guess we could do that instead." Like really sarcastic.
Good. Yeah, and then Mimir, the head, would say stuff too. I also like like him telling you like behind you. Or another thing, just if we're going to talk about him, I don't think I even had anything with him in my notes. That character was 10 out of 10. That was a great character.
Mimir was amazing. It was so
amazing way to give you, because he's the knowledge guy. So he's giving this story of, the lore of this game. And the main character is an inch away from being a silent protagonist, right? But the boy wants to talk. So this guy is talking and he's in the majority of the game. So good.
I can't tell you how many games I will Bioshock. They had those recordings and stuff to give you extra lore and information. Couldn't care less.
Just
Most of
shaking
it
my head,
I
yeah.
skipped. Yeah,
Most of it, dude.
The conversation between Atreus and Mimir was top notch. I found myself when we were in the boat on the Lake of Nine, they would have conversations to each other, and Mimir would be telling Atreus stories.
Yeah, exactly.
I would want. I kept
just park the boat and listen.
I would just leave it. I would just stay in the boat and just let him finish the scene. It was so good. So
and
good.
then he would also talk a little bit when you're running through the realms to teleport.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really cool. I know you're a big fan of when a game doesn't give you like a hard load screen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a load screen. You're just running endlessly in there. I don't know if you realize that, but that is the game loading, and it gives you the opportunity to run through. If you stand there and wait and don't even run, the door just appears right in front of you when the game is done loading the next segment.
Oh, interesting. I would always just run.
Yeah, no, I would too. But you're also listening to, Mimir talking about something.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done. I'm glad that you even mentioned that at all, because I don't think that was in my notes, but that was
some of my favorite interaction
well
was after Atreus found out he was potentially a god, and he was so sassy and like a completely different kid. All of it's gone to his head in an instant, and he would make comments and stuff. And then Mimir would be like, "We're just gonna let that slide." All right. Like, because Artorias would say something so terrible based on who he is as a person. He was like insulting his mother.
Yeah.
Like, I forget what it was, but it was like basically if she wouldn't have died if she was any better. It was like, dude, come on.
Didn't Mimir even at some point say something like you're gonna have to do something about him, the way he's like, he kind of like told Kratos like, you need to be a parent about that.
Why did you speak to the dwarf like that?
Aren't you sick of hearing about him and his brother?
Of course, but it serves nothing to make an enemy of him.
He should know the truth, even if it hurts.
It was needless and unkind.
Truth is more important than kindness.
Your mother would disagree.
She wasn't a god.
Yeah,
dude, I thought that character was going to be a piece of shit. Mimir, I thought he was going to kind of be like not a good character, but man, in the way it was implemented was so good. Just having a head on your belt at all times that can talk.
It was really good. That's one of the things, like that his reaction, Artrace's reaction to finding out this life-changing information.
Yeah.
How he handled it makes me worry about like my own kids and all that. Like it's different circumstances, of course. This is a fantasy game and all that, but it's like that was clearly a failure in parenting.
Yeah. He should have smacked him.
Not necessarily smack him, but in the raising of this kid, like it's about responsibility and knowing where your place is and all that, and teaching those values up front. Clearly, those weren't done, and those weren't there. If they were, it was from his mother, and there was clearly some lack in that kid's upbringing.
This is a very weird, has nothing to do with the game question, or maybe it does. I don't know. Do you think that if he would have told him from the start he was a god, it would have been a better outcome? Or do you think what he did, kind of withholding that information, was good? You're a parent.
Yeah.
Have you told your son yet?
Yeah, we just talked about it.
All right. Well, he's of age.
No, I definitely think, something I've tried doing with my kids, or with my oldest, and that I will do with my youngest.
Boy.
I try to talk with them more.
Yeah.
Where if
more than Kratos.
He'll do something, and then I think about like, oh, if I had done that at his age, what my consequences would have been.
And if that would have been effective, or I don't know. It's a weird
not if
question,
it's
but
not if it's been effective, but I have some issues with how things were handled in my household early on, which you don't know better until later on. So yeah, I'm trying to talk with him more. It's like, okay, you had this
that's good.
reaction.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm not
probably
going to react poorly. I'm going to let's talk through what happened.
yeah.
Right? Let's try to understand where you were coming from and all that. There is an age limit to this, right? I can't tell, I can't talk to my 9-month-old what's up, dude. Right. So there are some issues there. But I think if Kratos would have talked with his son and raised what his background was into him from the beginning, I think that would have been a much different reaction.
Right. I figured that too. I mean, I don't think being a semi-silent protagonist is really good for anybody, but yeah.
I think there could be a correlation between, okay, it's godhood. You have a power to do things that people can't do. You have a dangerous ability and or gift.
Yeah.
Teaching that responsibly is very important. Similar to, I would assume, I don't have these, but if you were in like guns, for example,
I knew
right?
you were gonna, yeah.
You're a hunting family and whatever. You have to teach your children gun safety and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So you have a dangerous thing.
You
right?
have the
Let's be honest,
ability to kill somebody.
You have the ability to cause lethal harm.
Yeah.
And you need to instill the importance of those things, right?
Yeah.
I think that there could be a good correlation between what he's dealing with, like a fantasy version, right, of that versus the real world application of like guns and gun safety.
He had a bow that shoots arrows of electricity.
Yeah,
It's technically a gun. It's an analog gun.
There you go.
Okay.
So no, I think there are definitely some parallels there. So I think early, if they brought it early on, I think that reaction would have been much different.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious. I don't know. That was like just off of the shoulder thought that I had. Did you kill? You killed? There's a storyline dragon you kill, right?
The one in the cave.
Yeah, it's how you get the electric arrows.
Yeah.
Cinematic as fuck. It's really, I feel like that's what the old God of War games were like, kind of just absurdly
That fight was
cinematic.
kind of hard and really fun.
Yeah, and very cinematic, like the ending area. There's like the quick time mixed in with,
Yeah, I had real trouble with the first phase of the fight underground when we were still on the elevator.
Okay.
That part was tricky for me.
Yeah.
I think I died a few times there. But once we got outdoors and they did like a phase 2, which mind you, and I thought was really cool. The fight was a boss fight broken up into phases.
Yes.
But there was cutscenes in between
to separate them.
Yeah, like you had your phase, he's attacking you, you're on this like lift in a cave, right? And you basically fight him off, he goes away.
Oh yeah.
And then you continue moving through the cave and all that stuff, and then hey, the dragon's back, and then you have to fight him again later on, and then it's a whole different set of phases.
And he's really PO'd.
Yeah, but I like that they didn't take that 10-minute fight and turn it into one big chunk. It was like a 3-minute and a 5-minute, and then maybe I think there was another phase at the very end of that. But they broke it up really, really nicely.
There was even a little bit of phasing going on with like the two Grendel fight when you go into Helheim, and there was a fight where you fight two Grendels, and and also in Helheim there's a little bit of phasing with that. I specifically remember in Helheim, the boss that was there, you fight him, and then if you get him to like a certain point and then die, his health gets a little smaller just to make you able to get through it if you're struggling enough.
Was it the troll that was like teleporting?
Yeah.
Yes, I liked that fight.
I have the note about the two Grendels. That was in the area.
What is it? What's a Grendel again?
I think they're like the giant version of a troll. They have like a big pylon that they carry, but there was like an ice and a fire one.
Yeah, and
I
you
like
had
that
to use
fight because you had
different elements.
Yeah, I like that shit. Yeah.
Which I really liked that, and how they queued it up in the game. It was more of like an aura. It was like red or blue. So you kind of the game told you, but it was seamless. It was natural on how they explained how the fight worked.
Yeah, there were times. I mean, you get the second weapon because you're going to an area where the first weapon you have isn't going to work, which was a good reason for him to do that because the stakes were high. He needed to go in there to help the boy. Those chains are not good. Like, they're a great weapon, but they represent bad things for him. It was essentially like slave chains. He was enslaved. That's why he had them on.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, man, it's a complicated story, but if I remember correctly, he has those weapons because he is the god of war. And he had like sworn to fight for the original God of War, and those were the weapons he was provided. And it's like,
right,
that's why he has the scars on his arms from wearing them.
Yep.
But I guess that's kind of that's old shit. But I liked how there were fights where you had to switch it up, and then there were even fights later on where you had to switch the weapon in between. And then just piggybacking a little bit off of the combat and the weapon changing, I had a favorite weapon initially, and then my favorite weapon turned into the chains. And then later on in the game, my favorite weapon became the process of utilizing all of them. You could like run up, throw the axe, hit somebody, freeze them, punch someone in the face, keep going, whip out the chains, retrieve your axe. It was just, I don't know, man. It all felt so good to me.
And how you described it, right? If you wanted to, it wasn't clunky. It was very seamless. It was very easy to do. Easy in the sense of like, the controls are in such a way that switching between stuff isn't a big hassle. There's no like menu. It's, as simple as like hitting a directional pad and you kind of go around it.
What was your favorite tactic of fighting overall? I guess I would ask. Did you have a favorite weapon?
I did play on easy because I thought I wasn't going to have enough time to play. I ended up having enough time to play. So I think I favored the axe because the hits felt heavier. They felt like more oomph and power behind them. But I did switch between when it was appropriate. I think I like the axe. I like the aesthetic of the axe a lot more. Because I'm coming into this game fresh without the previous things. The Blades of Chaos didn't really have any sentimental value to me at all. So the majority of the game, I had already gotten accustomed to the axe, so I just continued using it.
But
so I think
I bet you felt pretty fucking cool when you got them, right? That scene where he went home and got really them, nice. You were like you knew there was a significance. There was a lot of weight to that whole scene.
Only because of the YouTube video with the explanations of the previous games, the shots with Athena, like in the boat and in the doorway of the house. Yeah. Even not knowing it, again, going off of like the idea of maybe everything in Kratos' past was maybe like rumor or folklore or whatever. Seeing these things is kind of putting when you have these version eyes of this game of like, well, maybe there was something else going on. So the game does a really nice job hinting at the previous material without saying like, oh, yep, this is XYZ.
Right. I feel like they did a really good job with that too. And then you don't really understand if you're coming into the game right there. You don't know what the chains represent at all. You have no idea. But you know that he doesn't want them. He doesn't want to use them. He doesn't really like that he has them. You really get that sense of that when he goes and gets them again. And then when you see him take off, the arm guard things, and you see that his arms just permanently have a scar there from wearing them, you kind of get the sense that like there's something really, but they don't really explain it to you. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll make you more curious and you'll buy the fucking remaster or something. But I don't know. That was really good. My favorite weapon was barehanded, man. It just felt so
really.
Like, you felt it's like you were saying, man, you feel the hits you're putting in. Mm-hmm. The shield slam was great, and I loved the parrying mechanic, how you could parry, but then there was timed parries where it was even more effective if you were better at it. Mm-hmm. There was like a window where you could counter attack. And I remember like before I got the chains and I really experienced all of the weapons at the same time, I would like throw the axe into the fight, and then you could run up and like just do like a haymaker punch on somebody and either put them in stun mode almost instantly, or just I feel like you could just kill them, it was really powerful. And the stun part of the early portion of the game was really effective too, because you could get them in the R3 where you would like do the finisher move very quickly. So that was pretty cool. I liked
the
really
R3 the R3 the R3 animations were really nice. I wish there was some variation.
I agree
between the different kinds. Like there was only like 3 or 4.
There was a couple weird ones. Well, there was one where there was like one where he spears a guy and he just like runs forever, and he'll be like running at the edge of a cliff, running in place. Did you ever experience that? It was kind of a limitation, I guess, of the environment. But
I think what were like the basic enemies? They said the name of them. I can't remember. Like
something were they?
The Draugr. Those I rarely used R3 on. I think I did sometimes.
Died so easy. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the animation took longer than if you would just hit them one more time.
Yeah.
So I usually didn't do those.
I think you get a little bit of invincibility when you use that, though. You can't be damaged while you're doing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I wish there was some variation on the trolls that have the big pillars, because it's always you hit them up, you mess with their horns, you pull them down, and then slam the pillar on top of them. It was that over and over and over again.
And the boy would be like, I think you got it.
Yeah. Right. I wish there was like, I don't know, give me 2 for each kind of big enemy, and then you can, I don't know, randomize it.
Did you have a favorite one? There we go.
I think you and I have the same favorite. It's the werewolf ones.
That one was good.
He like grabs their bottom jaw and like peels their front half like a fucking banana. It was so brutal. My 7-year-old son was in the room during that, and I was like, dude. "Oh, buddy, you might want to leave the room for a little bit, bud.
We're not getting a dog."
It was so brutal, but it was so amazing.
I played on normal difficulty, and there was the trolls. Those are like the medium large guys, I think you would describe them. The R3 animation for that was like climbing on their back, sticking your hands and their fingers in their eyes or something, and then you can kind of steer them, and they're just punching.
Yeah.
I really like that. There was like at least 2 fights in the game where I didn't die because I was able to kill so many enemies by doing that. And then a cool thing is at some point the boy starts trying to do it too. It's like the boy saw you do it, and then he starts jumping on their back and trying to do it unsuccessfully. But it's like they added that, I think, at some point where he also felt like he gained confidence in combat, not just skills, but he would start doing more things. Like,
yeah, I think the frequency of his intervention went up.
Yeah, that was really, dude, it was just the way they did so much of that stuff was very good, because it was a real progression for the kid. And then he went, sorry to just jump back into talking about the boy, but he's obviously a main character, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, with how the end of the game, what they saw in that area, I won't go too far ahead. I would not be surprised if we start seeing, I don't know how Ragnarok ends up, but I'd be surprised if he becomes more controllable in future games. But, you know.
Like it goes in the opposite. Like Kratos is just like using a cane because he's so old, and he's throwing.
Well, I mean, you know, we've been talking about spoilers, but spoilers for a couple more minutes. You know, the last scene when they're in that area with the giants, and there's all the murals and stuff, and there's that the cave painting thing of Kratos dead in Atreus' arms that Atreus happens to miss. Like they're foreshadowing he's coming to the end of his days. So we'll see how Ragnarok goes. But you know,
dude, then there's the the problem of, like, you know, children killing their parents. That's like a huge theme in this game. So does he end up killing Kratos? But also, did Kratos break the cycle and change fate, or change that because I don't know, man. I want to play more.
So do I. It's really interesting. I'm really excited to see where it goes, but I would not be surprised if, in some capacity, Atreus becomes more than just your secondary character.
Right. Maybe, and I don't know. I feel like he's still so young in Ragnarok, but
I mean, how many years did they go across from, what was it, God of War 3, God of War 4 to 2018? Like, I
think it was a pretty
enough time for Kratos to get away from that, find something he was attracted to, have a kid, and then raise it to, what is he, 10 to 12 years old, somewhere in there,
something.
You know, so there's a good bit of time has elapsed.
At least that many years. 9.
Yeah. So I just think it'd be one, interesting to see him become more of just a passive character, and two, I could see him being like a potential lead, the character.
I almost wonder if they'll come out with if they'll just make a like God of Son of War or something series one day, and he'll just be a new character, because at some point we're going to be so invested in the kid that he's going to be his own character, you know. And at some point Kratos is probably going to die, I guess. I don't know if gods really die in this world.
I mean, he's been killing a bunch. Kratos has killed a bunch. Of course they do.
He can kill them because of something, though.
Because he is a god. A god can kill a god, right? That's how I took it.
I don't think a god can. I don't think that they can. I think he's able to kill them because this is maybe off of memory incorrectly, but I think he's able to kill gods because he killed the three sisters of fate and was able to change that aspect. And now it's kind of, but that also might mean that he can die technically too. So I don't know. But there's gods that are older than he is, you know. There was gods that, but who knows? I don't even know. He definitely, he killed. What was your reaction to him killing like Magni? That came out of kind of nowhere, right? When he just like threw an axe in the guy's face.
Wait, who killed Magni? Because we had the fight with two of them.
Yeah, so Kratos, I think, killed Magni, if I remember right.
I'm trying to remember because we had the fight with both Magni and Modi.
Yes,
that was difficult.
Magni was killed, I think, by Kratos. That was a good fight. That was a good utilization of both characters.
It was.
Magni gets killed by Kratos,
and then Modi gets killed by Atreus.
Yeah. Which was so.
I can't remember because Kratos was, to a certain extent, he was kind of like, he didn't instigate anything. I feel like he was always in defense of or reacting to somebody else. The stranger came, challenged him. He intervened.
Did you think the stranger was gone when that happened? I know this is dialing back to the beginning of what we're talking about.
I mean the stranger, one, healed himself, and then two, and then he said, no, I don't feel any of this, blah blah blah. So I believed him.
He seemed like an honest guy.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so when, I don't remember if you were answering.
No, but what I was getting to was, I believe Kratos was kind of like, okay, I defeated you. You're still alive, but I won, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to live, you can go away now. But I've won. And typically they would not accept that and then either charge in or do something to continue the instigation or to continue the interaction. And he would then respond with, okay, well then you didn't leave, so you're dead. Boom.
Yeah.
Right.
When Atreus killed Modi, I almost felt like it didn't happen. I don't know if I had to put any complaint about the story. It seemed
a little
weird.
I don't know. It was. I think they were using it as a character building point for Atreus, nothing else. So it was Magni or Modi. I keep getting it mixed up, but whichever
Modi.
one. So Modi's death was only
just to show how fucked up the kid had gotten.
Yeah, only a device to move Atreus's progression. That was it. So I kind of took it as he was kind of inconsequential. He's a character, but he's a god from this mythos and this pantheon that I've never heard of before. I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means, but the big ones: Thor, Odin, so on. All the big names, but it just seemed like he was mostly inconsequential, and it was just to move the boy's story.
Yeah, but it was, I don't know. Yes, and maybe that's if that is exactly how you're going to describe it, maybe that's my issue with it. Is it just kind of felt like a plot device, and it didn't really. Yeah. To me, it didn't feel impactful at all. Like it should have been. He showed up and he was already basically dead. Maybe that should have been at the end of the fight, and Kratos was like, "Show him mercy." And then he didn't. Yeah, I don't know.
But again, I think that's I think that's why it was showing
he was just being a piece of shit.
It was showing Atreus and Kratos kind of like disconnecting.
Yeah,
right. That the Kratos has been consistently saying, if you're going to kill, it needs to be for a reason.
Yeah, and that was for no reason.
Atreus didn't have a reason other than he was mad.
He was mad, and he was also just cocky.
He was vengeful and cocky, yeah.
He has to be a teenager in this game based on that, right?
Yeah, probably. I think he's above 10.
He is 11. So yeah, I'd say that's firmly above 10. It looks like Atreus is approximately 14 in Ragnarok. So there's your time frame on that. That was a Google answer.
Yeah, I mean, at the very end, they had the little, years later thing show up.
Oh man, I didn't expect
So
all
good.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. We'll talk about that, I think, but we'll kind of maybe close out with that if you're okay with it. Just to
that's fine.
Yeah. Did you do any of Sindri and Brock's side quests?
They were got
very
them,
good.
but I didn't do any of them.
Okay. They were I liked them a lot. They brought you to very unique, cool, just really fleshed out areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you got some pretty good weapons because of armor, I guess. Pretty good armor that were specific to the story. And also, I don't know, just the environments were cool. There was one where there's something it's stolen and you have to go retrieve it, and you go into this hideout of these people that stole it's the whetstone they keep asking you to retrieve.
Yeah.
And then you go in this whole area, and it was just a cool area to begin with because it was kind of half water, half land. It was like a cave system with water. And then you go, the last one, you go to this really big open area, and there's a big old dragon there. And and
I want to go back and play those.
It felt pseudo endgame, I guess, like not quite as like endgame, but definitely like something that you would want to take into the final fight, I guess. If that makes sense. Yeah. And it also fleshed out their story like a little bit more. It kind of showed where their perspectives were. How did you like those gentlemen as characters? We never talked about them.
We didn't. Before we get into that, I will say, when it comes to like their side quests, I did like how every time you went in to like use their shop and get upgrades and do all that, like, hey, you got the whetstone yet? It was again the game saying like, hey, you still have this outstanding thing.
Yeah, dude.
But it made sense because the character that was saying it was invested in receiving that item.
Yeah.
So they kept saying like, hey, you said you're going to get it. You got it yet? I really like that. The characters themselves were really, really great. It was, I don't know why one was blue and one was, white.
They might have explained that a little bit at some point. I think it might have to do with the type of dwarven work that they do.
Oh, interesting.
The metalworking type of thing. Because I think, I'm not positive, but I think maybe their method that they used was different, and it affected Brock a little bit. Everything that guy said was pure gold, dude.
Brock.
Fuck else you need?
How come your brother's got half your brand?
Because I ain't in a working relationship with that footlicker no more.
Sindri was a very nice character, a very nice guy, even.
Yeah.
But his character, the germophobic thing wasn't as lovable to me as Brock just being an asshole all the time.
Oh, is that dried blood? Oh.
They were very contrasting.
Yeah.
And dude, I liked how they were so different. Because if they just made them like, identical in some way or have really similar traits, I think they wouldn't have hit as hard because they were so vastly different.
Yeah.
Each one kind of like shined in their role.
Dude, I want to say there was a kind of a turning point with Brock. I don't know if you caught on to this as much. He's an asshole. Like the whole game, he's really like, he's not even nice. There's a part where he has like a beast of burden, I think he called it, to help him transport stuff. Yeah. And then he kills it and eats it. He killed it and ate it. Atreus asks him like, where's your beast of burden? And he's like, oh, that thing? I just got done shitting that out. He literally says that.
Hey, where's your beast of burden?
What do you mean? I ate her. Fat bits of her out just a while ago.
What is wrong with you?
What? Her milk ran dry.
He has like no regard for anything because he's just and that personality type is funny but fucked up. When the kid gets sick and it goes incapacitated, he's like, where's the boy? And he's just tells him like he's fallen ill and he's like, I have to do this now to save him. And he's like, Brock kind of panics and he's like, do you want me to go with you? Like, what can I do to help? And I was like, oh my God. Like, it showed that there was a lot more complexity to him than just being an asshole. Right. And that's, and then he shows up there.
He showed up. Yeah.
Yes, dude. And it's like, and he gives you, I can't remember what he gave you the ability to be able to get out of hell.
Right. And I think that inconsequential, but I think that's the point where your fast travel becomes a two-way door. because you were talking about fast travel. I think that is what triggered, because through the whole game, if you got to the end of, say, Helheim and said, okay, cool, I want to transport back, you could go to Brock, but you couldn't go away. And I think that's what turned it to be two directional.
But yeah,
it's fantastic.
That part I would say it kind of moved me. I felt like a little bit in my chest for that part, just because it was so genuine how he was like what, he stuttered, and this is a guy that doesn't ever give a fuck about anybody. He doesn't put himself out there for anybody. And then he asks if, like, do you want me to go with you? Because I get the feeling that they're probably both pretty capable of combat. They've definitely they choose to slip in and out of realms and everything, but I bet you they're very, very important in the world. I don't know, man. It was cool. I thought that was the part where I was like, yes.
We'll see if they carry on to Ragnarok, because I mean, it's supposed to, I believe it's going to be taking place kind of in the same area to some degree. It's got to.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. Well, the boy had the end. But yeah, dude. And then escaping Helheim, I thought that was the end of the game. Since we're kind of on that.
When you were on the ship. Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the end, because you knew that what's the guy's name? The stranger? What's his real name? Balder.
No. Balder.
It is?
No, it's Balder. It's Balder.
I was kind of, that was like out of the back pocket there. He was there, so I thought he was going to come and seek vengeance on the ship, and it was going to be a boss fight, because it was already a very big open area.
Yeah, I thought we were going to encounter Balder in Helheim, outside of just when he was like interacting with his memories. I thought it was going to be more than that, but it ended up not being, and I thought it was fine.
Yeah. No, it was that whole Helheim thing was really cool. I was very impressed with the way that it all unfolded. Also, you were back in an area you had went before, but it was all very different. And then, of course, that's when the boy just flips a switch and goes back to not being the worst character in the game.
Well, I think how they were explaining it was, yes, it was presented early on as like bad parenting and all that stuff, but I think whatever sickness he was going through, I think was amplifying his bad traits.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what it was. So it's like, and if he had any inkling of like, oh, well, I'm a god, so that means I'm more than the average being. If just that thought crossed his head for a moment, this sickness is going to amplify it to the level that we were seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I almost wondered if he was like poisoned in some way by the
I think it almost. I don't
think he explicitly was. Maybe, I don't know, but
they were using poisoned as like he's not 100%.
Right.
So there's something there.
Yeah, he's being a jerk.
Yeah. I mean, you like to the degree of like, if someone's depressed or anxious, they have like a poison within them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think from there you just go and you get swallowed by the serpent, which was fucking wild, right?
Oh man.
I knew something bad was going to happen with that, right?
Yeah. I did like it. I'm glad it wasn't as long as it was.
Yeah, dude.
Because the serpent swallows you and I'm like, okay, we're going to be
serpent,
in here
dude.
for like
it's very long.
Yeah, like how fucking far are we going, right? And
all the way out the other end.
It was maybe 10 minutes.
10 minutes, like one little puzzle. Basically.
Yeah.
Which almost makes you wonder if there was any point to doing that at all.
Plot device. Because
yes, and also
Balder found out and then tried
it shows how desperate Balder was to just how ridiculous he was willing to be over it.
Right.
Did you
attacking the world serpent itself? Like that's a ballsy move.
Pretty desperate, yeah, but he's, a real dirtbag. I forgot about the little arrows. Remember the guy gave the boy green arrows.
Yes.
And that's what broke the spell of not being able to feel anything on Balder. Did you catch on that? Yeah. I had completely forgotten that happened.
After all the interactions around those arrows came about, he was given the arrows, then they went to Freya for something. Freya freaked out about the arrows. And I can't remember at what point Kratos broke one of the arrows to use to fix his quiver.
Yeah.
I think that might have been before, and maybe Freya didn't see it or something.
Yeah,
so
how could she not?
He had this. I think it might have been. Anyway, so but he had this piece. Yeah, he had this piece of what was it? Pumpernickel. Well, it was. I can't remember what it was called. It was like a flower.
Pumpernickel.
It
was a pumpernickel bagel. It was Asiago.
It was poppy seed.
Was it?
No. It was.
Can you look that up, Jamie?
When have you seen the TikToker of, I think the account's called "And Every Guy with a Podcast," and he does satire stuff.
Oh, man.
Amazing. Whoever's listening, that Every Guy with a Podcast, go look him up. He's on TikTok. It's the funniest things I've ever heard. Anyway,
let me see what
he does a bit where he's talking to his co-host who named Chris, but Chris doesn't exist.
Oh yeah,
it's funny. He'll have glasses on, and then he'll take his glasses off, and they're still glasses, and he'll continue his exposition. Just stupid shit like that.
Just
anyway,
like us.
Yes.
It was mistletoe.
Mistletoe. That's what it was. So,
which is a great name for an arrow.
Yeah. So he had the mistletoe, and I think Balder like punched Atreus or something. No, Atreus like attacked him during that last Balder fight. So fucking good.
It was good. You had
Such
a lot of
fight.
Weapon mixing going on too, which I liked.
Weapon mixing, environment changing. Freya, in the background, losing her fucking mind, trying to interact and intervene. So good. It was just, oh my god, such a good fight. Such a good fight.
Balder was an intimidating enemy through all of it, man. Whoever the motion capture for that guy is, just kind of a scary looking guy.
Yeah,
he's a mean looking fella. What Balder motion?
And I think it's possibly because he wasn't like, Kratos is an imposing figure, right? Yes, he's super built, and he's like 7 foot tall. He's huge.
He's at least 7'12".
And then looking at the outline, or looking at the comparison between Kratos and Balder, it's like over a foot difference.
Yeah.
Very, very big.
But difference. It was almost like more intimidating that he was such a small guy, and he was just seemed so imposing for being he was kind of scrawny, right?
Yeah.
Did you know that Jeremy Davies? Do you know who that is?
I don't.
He was the actor for that character. Oh man, that link did not.
Yeah, I'm looking him up now.
Not an intimidating looking guy at all.
No, and the mocap kind of changes their look a little bit.
Yeah.
But
you can see it for sure.
Oh, there's some comparisons between Conor McGregor and Balder. How they mocap him. Yeah, it looks very similar.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. They also have.
I mean, Christopher Judge doesn't look like Kratos, which is fine. Like, the mocap doesn't always have to match. I don't know if he mocapped it or not, but Kratos, I think it was because it was already a established character. They probably weren't going to mess with that too much.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah, that guy did a great job too. I know he got some awards for that, but he did a great job in general. I have one thing in my note. Giant Land. I don't even know what the hell that is.
Oh, at the very end.
Oh yeah, dude. Okay, I should have made a little bit more clear on that. What is this picture from? That's gonna be a thumbnail for sure, man.
Oh yeah, we're gonna post that for sure.
Dude, I love man. If anything, man, our legacy will be our amazing thumbnail selection.
Dude, when I saw that post.
The one I did,
with Daryl the shark. I could not stop laughing.
You gotta get to the bottom of the internet to find stuff like that.
Oh boy. So
oh
god, the Land of the Giants I really liked.
It was a good way to end the game, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was because they were finally getting to what they've been trying to do the whole game, and they didn't do what a lot of games do, which we have to walk 100 feet.
Yeah.
And there's enemy after enemy after enemy. It was like, look, you finally made it to where you need to go. Here you go.
Yeah.
Right. And you could just walk through, take in the scenery and do all that. And it was really nice that the game just let you have the story.
One thing, I'm sorry for just taking all of the seriousness out of this, but I was playing it. My wife was sitting on the couch with me when I was finishing this, and she was kind of watching it too. And I was I don't know why, but I wondered if the boy was keeping up or, so I just turned the camera around, which made Kratos jog backwards up the stairs. And I was like, that guy is a god of fucking war to be able. He was just jogging full speed backwards upstairs.
Oh man.
which I think you'd make it one step and you would die. But
Yeah,
he did it. He
for
did
sure.
it.
Interesting that they had that size of stairs and murals and stuff like that when it was the land of the giants. But that's neither here nor there.
There's also some kind of weird stuff going on because Freya wasn't portrayed as not Freya, the white Fae wasn't portrayed as a giant at all.
Right.
I mean,
I think they're
Kratos
using
climbed
giant
that
as
mountain.
like anybody that isn't human sized, I think is part giant.
Right.
Is what they're kind of going for. So I did like when you're up on the peak and kind of looking out over the landscape with all the bodies that were just massive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look yet.
Don't look yet.
I liked how big they were.
Yeah.
Because you see like, oh, it's a giant and it's maybe 12 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
These were like hundreds of feet tall. They were absolutely huge.
There's a part where you spend like 20 minutes climbing one of their arms, the giant Thamer's corpse or whatever, the big frozen giant.
Yeah,
like that's crazy, man. They are.
Yeah, so they
small.
did. Yeah, through earlier parts of the game, they did kind of foreshadow like, hey, there are different degrees of giant, but like there are some that are absolutely monstrous.
Yeah, maybe maybe Faye wasn't done growing yet.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
What is that?
That's
from?
the same. That's the act. That's the.
Oh,
actor.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, he does not look the same.
No, you can kind of see it in other pictures, but I just thought all of that was kind of silly looking. Do you want to kind of go towards the ending of the game was nice, right?
That's pretty much the whole thing. We've gotten to like the end. So
one thing that was, I just want to say about the whole giant thing, other than running upstairs backwards, I thought this was kind of janky. He takes off the arm guard things and shows his scars on his arm, and he's like, I don't need to hide this anymore, or he says something like that, And the boy's like, can we just fucking go up this mountain here, dude? Like, I got to be at work in the morning. He literally doesn't even acknowledge it, right? I feel like the kid was just like, what? And then it just like snaps and he's got the armor back on and you're running up 1,000 feet of stairs. It was really weird. They should have just kept the armor arm off for the rest of that. There was no combat, so you didn't need to have it. It was very weird.
I have played a lot of games where something happens in a cutscene, but then it doesn't translate to the character model. And
I would have been okay with that if it wasn't
noticeable.
If they didn't double down on the weirdness for that. How the boy was just completely ignored it and was, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was a couple things there. Again, we're going at this from an 11-year-old kid. He finally was given the ability to carry the mother's ashes.
Yeah, dude, your response is extremely reasonable.
You're
absolutely right.
So now he's got his version of like the day before Christmas. I have the thing I want to do.
But your mom's dead.
I'm almost there, and I want. God damn it! I'm trying to have a heartfelt description of what's happening.
Yeah, you got to find another co-host.
Oh man, I'm gonna bring Ben on, and he's almost able to do the first real quest that this boy has been on, the first real journey, right? So that is where his mind purely is.
Dude, you're totally right.
And that moment that Kratos is happening is really for Kratos and the people that had known his story previous to this.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And if we didn't have this conversation, I wouldn't have felt any differently about it. But you're correct. I have to think of it as the response from an 11-year-old boy who is just standing in front of 30 hours of playtime and what they're trying to accomplish. And that's true. That's a really good point.
I've said this a couple of times, but with having kids, I see things a little differently. Through a different lens, right? Which is true. I definitely would recommend this game for
11-year-olds.
Dads. No, for dads.
Oh yeah.
If you've got a kid any age, I think it would hit harder if they're a little older. Playing through this, you're gonna pick up on things that the average player probably wouldn't.
Oh, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I started filling out adoption papers when I finished this game.
Oh my god! I got a fresh one for you.
No, it's okay. I'm not interested.
Oh man. Yeah, I was gonna mention something about the character models with the Assassin's Creed game, but it wouldn't fit.
We have to talk about Assassin's Creed. I got to talk about how I don't like tutorials. What do you want to say about Assassin's Creed?
Is there an Assassin's Creed that does a tutorial that you don't like?
No. I think
No.
it's like every episode I've mentioned how much I fucking hate tutorials in games.
Yeah. And I keep mentioning Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, that's like our thing, I think. Those are our pillars of unity.
You know, I was going to make the parallel between when we were talking about the stranger fight, the very first stranger fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to equate it to a better way for a game to introduce combat than putting you in a ring with a trainer and be like, oh, parry me and do all this. It's like, you know, you go one of the first Assassin's Creed game, the first Assassin's Creed game. We're going there. They put you in a ring with a sparring partner, and you go through the combat that way. So I feel like the stranger fight was God of War's version in a much better way of doing the sparring match where you learn your combat controls through a actual storyline boss fight.
If the game's good enough, you're going to figure out how to play it anyway. You don't need somebody to toss you a sword in a circle and say, you didn't quite parry that right. I'm going to give you another shot at parrying that perfectly. You have too much controller latency. Let's try again. If the game's good, you're going to do it.
I think this can be said a lot about a couple different forms of media.
Yeah. As
games are progressing, they don't have to tutorialize as much.
Right.
Even if they were going to do a God of War, but it was Atreus, they're probably not going to tutorialize a lot of stuff because it's assumed, kind of how we do this podcast, we assume certain things about our audience. They may have listened. The game designers are going to assume that they've played in some capacity. So the tutorialization is much lower. Other forms of media, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, his first one, we didn't get the whole backstory of the origin story of Spider-Man because we've gone through so many iterations of Spider-Man already. We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think they started doing that with the Batmans and stuff too. So, you know, I think with games, or the games that we started with were tutorialized for teenagers or younger. Before that, it was people that were picking up games for literally the first time.
Right.
So they had to tutorialize the pure basics of what a video game is and can be. So as we progress, that's going to be either so seamless you never even notice it, or they're not going to have to tutorialize anything.
Hopefully it's seamless and you don't feel it. Because that's something that I feel like I specifically look for in a game is I want the game to teach you how to play it without screaming at you.
Right.
You have a 9 out of 10 on enemies. Explain yourself. I just want to know.
I think it was a lot of these things kind of commingle, but I think it was because of the R3 big finishing move. It all just got pretty repetitive. And I had this problem with Diablo. Sometimes I want to break from just having enemies to have enemies. They were fine. I think there was an okay mix. You know, the first time they introduced, you have like an ice Draugr. You can't use the axe. So I like that stuff, but I think it wasn't that there wasn't enough variation.
Okay.
It's just that it was a lot of the same thing over and over again until you got to the boss fights, which were amazing. But, you know, in between Freya, or not Freya, in between, let's see, that dragon with the electric breath and Freya, all that shit in between as far as like more Draugrs, more trolls, more blah, blah, blah. It just got kind of like, it just got played out. So I like the individual enemies. I think they were just too numerous in some areas.
Do you think that if you kind of changed your way of combat a little bit and diversified a little bit more, maybe it would have...
Maybe, and that also could be because I was playing on easy. I didn't have to...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
...change my tactics.
Yeah, so that's a good point, actually, because
on every single enemy, except for the frost ones or the ones in Helheim, my axe worked 100%. So I just axed on everything.
Yeah, I found the game in some parts pretty difficult. I had a lot of... If you look, I spent a lot more time on this game, and I don't think it's because I did the side quests and stuff. I think the game was just significantly more difficult.
Because you made that comment, I said of like, oh, hey, I'm here, and then a couple hours later, you got an update, and I was like, oh, I'm doing this fight, and like, man, you're like almost done.
Yeah.
So, and I do want to make the distinction of enemies versus bosses.
Right.
Right. So I see them clearly different. Any of those dragons and named NPCs that you fought, those were all perfect, but it was the cannon fodder and the ads and the extra junk in between.
Yeah.
That's where I had to bump them down a notch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe a difficulty increase would have made a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Did you ever
It could have been.
you ever actually use the stance switching thing? I'm curious. This isn't in notes or anything like that, but you have there was an ability where if you pause for a second, he switches stance and he'll do a different version of a move when you then attack again.
Oh, no.
That was kind of cool because there was one where he would almost do like a boomerang attack in the middle of fighting. So he would like throw the axe, but he would like stop and put the axe behind him a little bit. And then like the next attack you do will throw and kind of bounce it between, but it wasn't like an aimed attack. It would just home in.
Oh, no, I didn't mess with any of that.
It was
so
fun
it's probably the difficulty.
Yeah, it was fun because you could look for a moment where you could pause attacking long enough to allow it to switch stances, but
gotcha.
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, maybe the enemies thing. I will agree though, there wasn't a ton of variation. What enemy gave you the most trouble? Because I have one that just particularly stood out with me that fucked me up pretty good.
The Magni and Modi fight was hard. Other than that, I had an issue with the witches. Not the witches, they were the ones that like teleported around and had the poisons, but I didn't like those at all. Those were a pain.
The arrows were really effective on that.
Yeah, I could never hit them with my axe. It was always arrows.
Yeah, that stun arrows in particular would make them so you could hit them a lot better. If you used the blue arrows, it would increase their stun gauge or make it so they couldn't teleport. There was a pretty good reason to switch.
I talked about the first phase of the dragon fight that was in the cave. That was difficult. And then there was one troll that I encountered that I had difficulty with. It was a regular troll, but the problem was I didn't have enough healing. I forget what the thing was for healing.
Vitality.
I didn't have enough. Like as the encounter started, I didn't have enough, and I kept dying, and then I wouldn't get any back, so it just kept cycling over.
I initially was going for strength and defense because I didn't really know any better, but then eventually vitality became a really important stat to me because I picked one of I think it was an axe handle ability where you could like hold the block button and then hit circle, and he would just like bring his hand out and heal himself really quickly.
Oh, interesting.
And the more vitality you got, you would get like a pretty good heal. And I think that was kind of like a shit tier maybe ability to take, but I found it really helpful because sometimes I would use that more than once in a fight. I also had one where the boy would throw health potions at me if I got hit really hard.
Oh, interesting.
That would help out a lot too. I did not play very defensively unless I never picked up that shield unless it was going to be like a last second counter attack, which was only about 50% of the time, all the time.
Right. Oh, you know what I really didn't like? The whole area, I think it was the first world you go to that had the flying guys, like the little fairy mosquito things. Elves. I didn't like those at all. I hated those.
With the blinds, kind of, where they like encroach you in darkness. Dude, those enemies gave me so much trouble.
I didn't like those at all.
There was one part where I think it was when you were going through all of the realms or something, and then you kind of had to fight like a gauntlet of every enemy in the game.
Yes.
Based on its world. That part wasn't difficult except for because I hadn't seen those enemies in so long.
Yeah.
I was just constantly blinded.
That was a really cool scene, though. I really liked that.
It was. Yeah, it was very cool, and especially like that it kind of brought back the enemies again. And I had actually forgotten what tactics worked well against them.
Yeah.
And I want to say I don't really remember again. I forgot again. I think it was the light arrows specifically because they were dark elves. Seemed like it worked well, but yeah, I don't know. That was cool.
I think with them it was like parry, block, and then counter attack. I think was their whole deal. Yeah. But they would dodge if you ran up to them and swung, and they would also dodge if you threw the axe. So yeah. Were the dark elves the one that gave you an issue? What was the one that was difficult?
Oh yeah, it was the dark elves specifically. I did have occasionally the issue with I want to call them witches too. But
I like how I went through like, oh yeah, every enemy was hard, and you're like, oh yeah, just the dark elves.
just the dark elves. They were
Which one did you like? All of them.
You tell me individually which ones. So you beat the game a little bit after me, not by much. And then You went back and did the little like the prologue, is it called?
Yeah, at your instruction, because I was like, oh hey, the credits just rolled, and you're like, well hey, did you go to the house yet? And I was like, well no.
Yeah, that's a big thing though, right?
It was really nice.
I know I kind of had an oh fuck moment with that, because I know in the back of my mind that somebody was going to be upset about everything that happened, but the fact that like the boy saw it in kind of a dream, but it was definitely not a dream. It's definitely like a prediction. Also, that kind of plays, I think it said 3 years later. It said it.
Yes.
And then that also puts the kid's age for Ragnarok in about, I think that's literally how Ragnarok is going to start.
I think so too.
I think I want to be in that.
It's going, it's going to be PS5 because it's not for PS4.
It's on PS4, just so you know.
There. Is it really?
It is. So yeah, I mean, it just so you know, you don't have, like, I want to play it on PS5, but I might have a
next episode.
I want to wait. I know this is a weird thing, but I would like to wait because I want the game to feel new. I don't want to feel neutered getting into a brand new game. And then, like, I'm so used to playing like the maxed out God of fucking War. And then
because we're gonna lose.
You will for some reason.
Which I'm curious to know how they're gonna explain that, because we've gone through and or is it just assuming that like you're at a different level? So I don't know.
I predict one of the weapons breaks immediately upon impact somehow. Right?
He tries to hit the hammer and it just like the Leviathan axe explodes.
Yeah, I'm thinking something like that. The chains I think are too iconic, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't have the chains. Maybe he immediately gets smacked into another realm.
He's going to defeat Thor and take his hammer.
Oh shit! Maybe that'll be the second weapon. Maybe you start the chains are the first weapon you get. Maybe.
Yeah, because we all assume that's Thor. Right, you got the hammer, the lightning, all that stuff. Is Thor going to be the first literally the first encounter? Are you going to kill Thor right off the bat?
Is he going to be Stranger 2.0?
Yeah, like how are they going to run that? So I'm very intrigued.
I know. I want to play it really bad. I see you put ready for Ragnarok.
That's
I want to play it so bad, but I am going to restrain a little bit and put some time in it just so that way I can build a little bit of hype and kind of, it's weird to do that, but
no, I get it.
That's the way I want to do it. And like I said, I'd love to play it on an actual PS5.
Yeah.
I just want to see the game like the way that, maxed out. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe if I don't get a console by holiday season because it doesn't get cheaper, I might just buy one, or I'll borrow one from your brother. I don't know. Hey, give me that PS5, dude. Or maybe I'll probably find one in the trash.
When they launch PS6, well then we'll get it.
Dude, I know. I think I've mentioned it before. We're so behind on consoles, I think.
Yeah. It's rough. By the time you actually get a chance to get one, they're on the new one.
I never really felt like the PS5 and Xbox Series were necessary yet.
Yeah. I did like that they let them be somewhat back compatible, which was
I think
nice.
PlayStation did a better job, but I don't
the Series X and S are essentially Xbox Ones. Most of your Xbox One games are still playable. It's just whether or not you have a disc or a digital. That's the kicker.
True. Yeah, it's so weird, man. The PlayStation 5 is a weird looking console, but it's even weirder with a disc slot.
Not gonna lie, it's fugly. I'm not a fan of the
controller.
I'm not a fan of the Xbox Series X. I like the look and the sleekness of the S. I just want my disc drive back, and I want the bigger hard drive.
Yeah.
So
I don't like the look of the DualSense controller. That's the PlayStation's newest iteration controller.
Right.
It's goofy looking. It looks like the console, kind of.
Yeah, you've got like 40 of them on your wall. So wait, hold on. Do you have an Xbox or a PS5 controller but no PS5?
I have two. Actually, that one up there in the black one there, that one right there.
Oh my goodness! Have you posted? Have you posted your shelves? You need to post your shelves online.
I don't think I should do that.
Yeah, you should.
And then this is this is what I played the game with. This is the DualSense Edge comes with a 2-hour battery life. It's honestly pathetic. But this is the cool thing. You have a Steam Deck now, but it has the back buttons on it. So
Okay.
I had mapped this to the boy's arrows, and this was dodge.
Oh, interesting.
So you got this, and then you have these buttons right here. I was very easy to spam arrows and dodge at any point.
One thing I really got to get used to from Xbox to PlayStation is the directional pad is flipped from what I'm used to. So normally the directional pad's here and our joystick's up here. So I can't tell you how many times I would leave the joystick and then move my hand here, like looking for the Xbox directional pad.
Yeah.
And that killed me so many times.
How do you feel about that controller in general now that because you've played a lot more Xbox than PlayStation? How do you feel about the layout? Because it's very polarizing for people.
Yeah,
I don't even notice a difference.
Because I see where my thumbs are.
That's
if
bad.
I go in, they rub. They're not as bad as they used to be because I don't put my thumbs on the tip of the joysticks.
Yeah.
This is really good content for an audio only podcast as we're looking at each other's controllers. So sorry, everyone.
And they're definitely, it's actually controllers. We're not comparing wieners.
Well, I don't have
it's audio only. Yeah. It's not wieners. Is there anything else to talk about video games?
For God of War, no. However, we do need to talk about our next episode and what game we're going to be playing. Our next game is my pick. Submerged Hidden Depths. Why is that funny?
Dude, honestly, I have no idea. I think I've been awake for way too long. I woke up at 4 and went to the gym, went to work for 12, 13 hours, and then did this. Sorry, dude. I have no idea why it was so funny. I think I half expected you to crack up, so it just made it funnier. Holy cannoli.
How do you feel about that game selection?
It sounds good. I don't know anything about it at all. It looks like a short game. It looks kind of like a relaxed game. I'm looking forward to having something I can play. I'm going to do a lot of overtime coming up here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to something that isn't going to keep me up. That's one of the things I like about video games is playing them before I go to bed and just slowing down.
Good for you. Two things, because I've gotten through some of this game already. Steam Deck looks great. If you can get your Epic, it was a free game on Epic a while ago, so I picked it up.
I want to say that I downloaded it I have it on Steam, I think.
Oh, perfect.
I think I do. Yeah, I bought it on. You mentioned it, and it was pretty cheap. I think at that time it was on sale, so I bought it.
It's a pretty short playthrough. I think it's only supposed to be 3 or 4 hours. I think it'd be a really good Steam Deck game to kind of just relax and play for a bit. From what I've seen so far, it looks a little bit actiony exploration. You know?
It looks pretty.
So, but yeah. So I think that's going to do it here for us at 321 Backlog. I think we're going to go ahead and sign out. Thanks so much for listening. That wraps up our discussion for God of War 2018. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know with a thumbs up, a comment, or sharing with your friends and family. If you're able to do so, play along with us. We'll post upcoming games to our socials and what games are up next at the end of each episode. This has been 321 Backlog by Alec and James. You can connect with us on any of our social media pages and by sending us an email at 321backlog@gmail.com. Until next time.